Welcome to the aromatherapy secret that transformed my life immediately, giving me a life of less stress and more influence. And I just want to welcome you today. I just want to thank you for spending the time with me today and for focusing on this class for the next 90 minutes and just for giving this your full attention, for being present with me, for just giving it your all to take in this information in order to change your life and bring in a new tool or a new set of tools in order to live the life that you were called to have. So I first wanted to introduce myself and tell you who I am, tell you a little bit about me. And I just wanted to welcome you here and thank you for spending the time with me. So I'm Eviana Bynum, and I help women release judgment and embrace and embody inner peace in their lives in the holistic way. So I'm not going to be telling you about any medicines. I'm not going to be telling you about anything that is not natural and is not something that you can't try on your own from the comfort of your home and according to your personal level of comfort and where you're at on this journey to wellness and to embodying inner peace. So first, I wanted to tell you about the webinar hashtag. So while you're watching this webinar, if you're having any aha moments or anything that you just find that you're like, wow, this is worth taking a screenshot of, I want you to share it on Instagram, on social media, using the hashtag #WeAreGraceVoyagers, because we are women or men who are willing to live our lives filled with grace while embodying peace and also embracing the fact that we are on a wellness voyage. That a voyage means that we are willing to go into new territories and take on the changes that come while being on this voyage and encouraging ourselves to give ourselves grace while these changes are happening, because in order to go into new lands, we must be willing to embrace new things and new changes and leaving what's behind and what wasn't worth it and what doesn't serve us anymore, leaving it in the past. That's what it means to be a grace voyager. And we are all Grace Voyagers. And first, I wanted to read you a few things from the Grace Voyager Manifesto so that you can start to embody this image and embody this new person being a Grace Voyager. So a Grace Voyager is someone who's willing to accept that their life is a journey to which the only destination is peace. A Voyager, a Grace Voyager, is always willing to explore new lands, new ways of thinking. They take on their new name as grace, to which they stand true to in forgiving themselves quickly. So Grace Voyagers don't stand for perfectionism. They don't stand for what is not true. They forgive themselves quickly and they don't dwell on the past in a negative light. They only look to the past for truth and for peace and to find their strengths in those struggles. You do not fall into comparison. Instead, you are thankful for your uniqueness. But though you are unique, you are willing to explore the parts of you in which you feel stuck. You're open to change so that you can be a higher version of yourself. You're willing to explore the parts of you that have created blocks in your life in order to find resolve and uncover the truth of who you are. You are a truth seeker, and you're always willing to give yourself grace, which means that you are gentle with yourself whenever is necessary, and you're also able to extend that grace to others, not falling into judgment. So for now, I want you to take a moment to eliminate distractions. If you have your masterclass action guide with you, bring it in front of you, grab a pen, and then put that phone on vibrate. Any distractions, turn off the TV, close the door, find a quiet space, because this class is only going to be around 90 minutes. I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as possible, but these are only 90 minutes out of the over 10,000 minutes of your entire week, and you deserve to learn this information because this information is so valuable in being able to change your life. So does this sound like you? I'm reading my notes here, but does this sound like you? You feel like your life is always moving too fast. You're always in crisis. You're having issues at work. Maybe you're dealing with office politics and you're struggling with gaining respect from coworkers. Furthermore, maybe you feel like you don't have respect from people anywhere. Your kids don't even respect you. You're not making the money you want to be making. You don't have control over your time, over your feelings. You're always under a lot of stress. You know there's issues going on beneath the surface, but you just don't have the time or mental space to deal with them. What you do know is that there is some sort of self-care needed. You need some kind of self-improvement in order to start moving forward in all these areas of your life. And you know that these changes start with you, but you don't know how. You try everything, but you can't stick to it. You try new things, but it just doesn't seem to work. It doesn't seem to propel you forward. It just does a little bit. Maybe it's temporary, but it doesn't bring you to where you want to be. I want to urge you to stay until the end because there's a very special project that I have been working on and I want to share it with you. I've given it my all. Everything that I'm going to share with you, I've been studying for years. I've been studying neuroscience, psychotherapy, psychology. I've been studying human behavior, the human mind. I've been studying spirituality, so many different things in order to bring this knowledge to you and to introduce you to just a little part of what I've been working on in the bigger scheme of things. And before we move into the class, I wanted to introduce you to two terms. And if you have your action guide with you right now, I want you to bring it forward and you can fill in the blanks now. And the first one is influence, because this is a term that goes hand in hand with what we all want. We want to all have influence in our life. So the dictionary definition of influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. So influence can be good or it can be bad. But I want to talk about what good influence is. So people that have good influence. So obviously when you think of famous people, you can think of Oprah, maybe Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook. And you could say his influence has either been good or bad because Facebook can either be good or bad in our lives. We talk about Bill Gates. We talk about the creator of Apple. There's so many people in the world that have had positive influence. Let's talk about Mother Teresa. People of good influence, Gandhi. Now, it doesn't have to be someone who's famous. Let's think about someone in your life. Maybe your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather. Maybe it's your pastor, a certain teacher, an instructor. Maybe it's one of your children who has an influence on you with the things that they do that just wow you. And there's also the other side of it. There's negative influence. There could be people in your past or in your life right now that are toxic to you or had a negative influence on your life. But this topic of influence is an important one to keep at the forefront of your mind when you're thinking about who you want to be. What would you accomplish? So I left a space in your action guide so that you can write down what would you accomplish if you behaved like a person of influence. So let's talk about these big goals and dreams that you have. Let's talk about your family. Maybe your marriage. You'd have a better marriage. Maybe you'd have more connection with your kids or a better influence on your kids because you wouldn't be having negative behaviors or these dysfunctional patterns in your life. So if you were a person of positive influence, what would you accomplish? Or how would you behave? Would you leave the job that you hate and actually have the courage to pursue the career that you love? Would you have pushed past fear in order to have these accomplishments that you've always dreamed of? What would you have avoided if you were a person of influence? Maybe you wouldn't be such a pushover or feel like such a pushover in your life. Maybe you'd have more self-control. You'd get out of those toxic relationships. You'd hold yourself to a higher standard. Now let's talk about the next term that I want you to fill in that blank with, and it's peace. Why is peace so important? Peace is the freedom from disturbance. Some synonyms for peace are tranquility, calm, restfulness. What does being at peace mean to you? For me, personally, being at peace is being at peace in my mind. Freedom from disturbance mentally. Not being a slave to my own negative thoughts, to negative thinking. And knowing how to remove the things that don't bring me peace or that disturb my peace. And now take some notes for yourself. How would you behave if you had inner peace all the time? You can go back to your marriage. Maybe you wouldn't snap so quickly. Maybe you would know that you sometimes have to relinquish control. That is a big part of inner peace. Knowing that things will be taken care of. Maybe if you were a person of inner peace or you had more inner peace, you wouldn't snap at your kids. They wouldn't be scared of you. They wouldn't say, "Oh my gosh, mom is in a bad mood. Stay away from her. There she goes again." You'd be more grounded, a healthier individual. Maybe you wouldn't have issues with emotional eating or depression. Maybe you'd be more respected at work because you'd be someone that could be relied on because they know that you have composure. So just jot some things down. Now here's what you're going to learn in this class. I'm going to introduce you to the 3 keys to inner peace, or the 3 keys to embodying peace. I'm going to talk to you about what you can use, the tool that you can use to turn your struggles into strengths. I'm going to show you how to uncover the messes of your past in order to find the hidden messages and lessons behind them. And how to make peace with the negative voices in your head and reprogram your mind for greatness, because this is possible. I'm going to show you exactly how aromatherapy fits into all this and why it is a key role in helping your brain reprogram, helping you reprogram your brain. And I'm going to teach you exactly how your brain is reprogrammable. I'm going to break this down for you. And how your brain is actually the vehicle behind all of the successes and failures in your life. So here's where it all started. I can't start sharing this stuff with you without telling you my personal story. So this is my son, and this is a few days after he was born. So he was born 5 weeks early. Some doctors didn't know if it was 5 or 6 weeks. It really doesn't matter. He basically didn't make it to full term. So at the time that he was born, his lungs were underdeveloped. Whenever he was sleeping, he would completely stop breathing. So he had to be put on oxygen because his oxygen levels would just completely tank. My little guy couldn't eat. I couldn't nurse him because he wasn't strong enough to even nurse. He had to be put on feeding tubes through his nose, which he kept ripping out. He was a little fighter from the start. But he was not in an ideal situation. He was super tiny. And when I had this brand new baby, I had all these plans. I wanted to be this completely different person from who I ended up being. Thank God for setbacks, right? During that time, I had been suffering with Lyme disease for years. I had so many issues. I had severe anxiety. I would have panic attacks. I would get really depressed. And about a year after he was born, maybe less than a year, a friend of mine, he had been dealing with acid reflux. He was dealing with tons of stomach issues. And the doctors had put him on a medicine that he kept throwing up. He was disgusted. Even as a baby, he would completely just repel the medicine. It was disgusting. Finally, one day I was like, let me try this. Let me taste this. So I put a little bit in my mouth and I instantly gagged. It tasted like a crushed pill. Have you ever had a pill in your mouth and it starts to dissolve and it tastes absolutely disgusting? Well, this is what my baby was having to take. So I was like, no wonder. And at that time, I just was dealing with so much guilt because I'm like, man, I don't want my baby to be on these meds all the time. He's a baby. He's so tiny. So I wanted something that was more natural. And I asked, I had a friend come to me and she said, well, why don't you try peppermint oil for his tummy issues? And this is where I'm going to talk to you about essential oils. So before you start to recoil, you have to listen to the facts and the studies that I'm going to show you so that you can see that this is probably something that you should try. Because when I tried it, even though it took me a while to really believe in it, I started to see, wow, this really works. And I ran out of my little sample, so I was like, hey, can I get another sample? And she was like, okay, but you're going to have to get your own stuff soon because I can't be just like dishing it out all the time. So I started using it for myself. It was just peppermint oil. That's all I started with. And finally, I saved my money because I realized, okay, I need to get my kit. She told me about the starter kit. And I did my research. I like to do my research before I make a decision. So I did my research and I realized, okay, this is the cheapest thing I could find. It's like 50% off, the cheapest thing on the website, the best deal. So I got my kit and I started to really dive into essential oils. So I started using the dietary oils for immunity stuff. I started to use the blends and the different ones for emotional things, for emotional wellness and emotional support. And I started realize like, wow, this works. My husband and I started to notice that they were helpful in balancing our emotions. My husband hated his job at the time. And one day I diffused a blend called Joy because he had some serious attitude issues then. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. Let's just test it out. He didn't even know. And within minutes of being home, he was dancing. He was like in such a good mood. And I was like, huh. And then I told him and he was like, you have no idea the bad mood that I was in before when I got home. And I was like, told ya. So what happened? I became obsessed with essential oils, like obsessed. I started learning more about them. And the more I learned, the more uses I found for them. And while they were so helpful, though, I still wasn't at the place that I wanted to be. I wasn't at the place that I wanted to be mentally. I wanted to accomplish all these dreams and goals, and I just wasn't able to do it. There were certain levels of accomplishment in my life, but it wasn't what I wanted. And as you can see, your girl has a lot going on. I've got 2 kids. A week before my son was born, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And this little girl right here that you see, oh, she's got some spunk. This little girl came out with a vengeance. At that time, I had 2 dogs. Now I have 3 dogs. So the first 2, so I had my Great Dane, as you can see there with the kids. I had my little Shih Tzu Chihuahua, my little old man. And then now we have our pup, Hope. She's our little rescue pup, our first rescue. But in my family, we've always had a lot going on. We're creatives. We just like to try new things. We like to travel. And I just wasn't accomplishing what I wanted because, hey, I got my master's. I got my master's in business administration while I was pregnant with my son. I then started a thriving photography business. Thriving. I was able to support my whole family with this business, a creative business. And I had my blog that I've been working on all these years. But that was the one thing, that was like my passion project, the one thing that I wanted to really impact the world with. I was like, I want to, and I still to this day have a belief that I will be speaking with thousands one day, millions one day. And I'm going to be used by God as a vessel to bring this message that I want to bring to you, that I want to start bringing to you today. But I didn't have inner peace. And that's why it was like I could only get so far in my dreams, only so far. And it wasn't until I was introduced to the aroma freedom technique, that's when my life started changing drastically. Because I already had the essential oils, and now I had a technique that I could use in order to create lasting change, in order to rewire and reprogram my brain. And I believed in it so much that I became a certified practitioner. And now I've been working with clients for a while now, and I've been seeing such amazing, amazing transformations happen. So before I move forward, I wanted to share this quote. And it says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." That was by the late James Baldwin. Meaning, we can't change what we've been through. We can't change our experiences. We can't change even the things that we're going to go through. And we also can't change ourselves until we face what we've been through. So I wanted you to have this quote in your mind as we go into this masterclass, and I teach you how you can rewire your brain. It's going to require some work, and it's going to require facing the past. So the missing piece that changed my life, if you have your notes ready right now, the missing piece that changed my life, the missing part of the puzzle was emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is defined as the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle your interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So I knew I had a lot of issues, and I knew that a lot of them had to do with my traumatic childhood and my traumatic early adulthood. And I knew that I needed lots of self-care. I knew that. And I knew I needed help in that department. I just didn't know how to move forward. And I knew that, that was just part of the puzzle. These things of self-care, these things of the trauma, I knew that they were just parts of the puzzle because obviously I'd been going to therapy, I went to counseling, I went to an anxiety counselor, and while those things helped temporarily, they weren't what was creating that propelling in my life. I was still going back to the old ways. And I just couldn't move past these things. My life was always in crisis. One crisis after the other, one fire to blow out after the other, to put out. And I needed to move past these barriers in order to heal myself. So have you been through this, or are you going through this right now? Like, you know that there's certain things wrong, and you know what you need to do, and you know the steps to get there, but it's like, it's just not happening. There's no movement forward for you, right? So now I want to introduce you to the 3 keys. Because when I learned how important emotional intelligence was, I started to develop these 3 keys in my life, and I started to come up with this system, this 3-part system. So through the use of the aroma freedom technique, I mastered the art of self-discovery. That's key number 1, self-discovery. And through self-discovery, you are able to learn how experiences in your past molded the behaviors that you have today. You're also able to learn exactly where you stand on values, on your opinions, and on your beliefs. And finally, you can uncover the experiences in your past that left you stuck and unable to move forward in these areas of your life. So as I teach you the first key, which is self-discovery, I'm going to give you a little crash course on neuroscience. And you're going to learn a little bit about the brain and how your memories affect your behaviors. You're also going to be introduced to the aroma freedom technique in this section and how this tool is used to cleverly discover where your personal blocks originated. I then started diving into self-care. So I realized that self-care is not a one-size-fits-all. It's just not. What works, while some practices may work for you, they may not work for me. They may work for some people, but they may not work for everyone. And that's why there's so many different self-care practices. Like, for example, CrossFit. I don't like CrossFit. It doesn't work for me. I don't really enjoy competition. Things that are competitive or things that just require me to like be the winner. So everything that works for other people, it doesn't work for everyone. My husband, when it comes to exercise, he likes those like military type, like kick your butt exercises, like Insanity and like Body Beast. For me, I like yoga. I like meditation. I like to go running. I like solitary type of exercises. So I discovered the tools that helped me put my anxiety at bay and to eliminate it altogether. For example, the most powerful tool that I discovered for me was aromatherapy and essential oils. But one thing that I did discover about aromatherapy is that it can work for everyone. And I'm going to teach you exactly how it affects your brain. And I want you to be open to this concept. Promise me that you will be open to what I'm teaching you and to what I am suggesting for you too. So just take a moment to just bring this into your life and to be ready and prepared to bring in new knowledge. So aromatherapy, it's the use of high quality, and I stress high quality, essential oils for the purpose of altering one's mood, cognitive, psychological, or physical well-being. When I dive into the self-care section, I'll talk more in depth about how essential oils are used. I'm going to tell you exactly which ones I use and I recommend, because I can't ethically recommend any other types of oils or any other company because I just don't feel comfortable and I don't feel honest being that way. And I'm also going to talk to you about how essential oils are used in the aroma freedom technique to rewire your brain to positive thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs. And the key one there is behaviors. Finally, it brings us to the third key, which is self-mastery. So once you've learned how to apply the first two keys in your life, your future is more in your hands than it's ever been. So while you still face the challenges that you've always faced, you can now overcome them rather than recoil, because now you're equipped. You now know your triggers. You know exactly when there's a negative voice popping up, and you know how to retaliate immediately in a gentle way. In the self-mastery section, I'll teach you how the use of the aroma freedom technique can actually help you change your behaviors and accomplish your goals through the release of mental blocks that have formed in your life, because these blocks are real and they truly cause you to behave in a way that you don't want to behave, no matter how much you try or resist. This is done by the elimination of negative thoughts and the creation and execution of new self-talk. Once you gain the language, you'll also uncover the strategy to eliminate the dysfunctional patterns that have been holding you back spiritually, emotionally, physically, professionally, and personally. And these three keys are what I dive deeply into and walk you through one by one in the Embody Peace core training, which I'll be giving you a special invitation to the collective at the end of this masterclass, and I'll let you know more of what that means and that entails. So let's talk about the first key, which is self-discovery. But first, I want to give you a warning. I want to give you a warning, nerd alert, because in this part of the masterclass, you'll have to put on your neuroscientist hat and pay close attention so that you can understand this information. I've done my best to simplify it as best that I can, but some details just have to come out nerdy. I have to get real about certain parts of your brain and certain processes. But trust me, I'm going to make it as simple as I can. So in this part of the class, you'll learn how our brains are wired. You're going to learn how our story bank affects our behavior. You're going to learn how our amygdala hijacks our rational brain. You're going to learn about the thought, feeling, memory complex and how that comes together. And you're going to be introduced to the aroma freedom technique, which moving forward, I'm going to talk about it as AFT. And you're also going to learn how the first 5 steps of the AFT process aid in self-discovery. So let's start our neuroscience crash course. So let's talk about our brain. And I want you to think about our brains as a computer. So think about your brain as a computer. This computer, your brain, is wired for survival. It's what tells you to eat. It's what tells you to hide. It's what tells you to go to sleep. It's what tells you that you're tired or that you're stressed. It is there to protect you. And since our brain is like a computer, if you think about a computer, computers need upgrades. So old systems and old processes in computers, they need to be upgraded, because if they didn't, then we'd still be using the computers from the 80s, right? But those same computer systems or those same operating softwares, they need updates because they have bugs, right? So as we're going through upgrades in our life, we need to work out the bugs, the things that just no longer serve us. And our computer, our brain, has a powerful hard drive. And I like to call this hard drive our story bank. So in your notes, you'll notice that there's a little blank to put in your story bank. So now let's learn a little bit more about our story bank. Let me just take a sip of water. So our experiences or our memories, things that we've been through, are stored in our mind as stories. Whenever we've been through these experiences, we also made decisions about those experiences in order to protect ourselves, in order to make better decisions, even though they don't always translate as better decisions in the future. These stories replay whenever something happens that reminds us subconsciously about them. So let's say that we are experiencing something now, our subconscious brain is reacting in a certain way based on a similar experience that happened in the past. So think of these stories as agreements that you made about how you'll react. So for example, I'll never trust a man again. So let's say you were in a relationship and Joe Schmo cheated on you, right? And so you're like, oh, he stinks, I'm done with him, whatever. And then you're like, all right, I'm going into a new relationship and Jack Schmo cheats on you too. So what happens now? You're like, forget it. I'll never trust a man. They're all the same. All men cheat. Have you ever heard somebody say that, or do you say that? Or let's say when you were in 4th grade, you went up to make a presentation and you got tongue-tied and everybody laughed at you. So you're like, oh my gosh, for one, public speaking sucks. And for 2, whenever I speak, I sound like a fool. Maybe you have foot and mouth disease like I have. I like to joke about that. And you constantly put your foot in your mouth and you say things that you're like, oh my gosh, did I just say that? Did I just say that out loud? But this could be a story. I always sound like a fool. Or this was one of my stories. I'm too intense. I have to water myself down. But really, it's just that I'm passionate. I get passionate about certain topics. It's a wonderful part of my personality. That's why I'm a visionary. That's why I'm teaching you this class today. If I was all like, hi, I just want to talk to you about this, like changing your life. Obviously, that wouldn't work for what I'm teaching and the purpose that I have in this world. Or sometimes we have prideful stories that we create, or ones that we create in order to protect ourselves. Like, this is how I have always been. I am not going to change. Deal with it. That's a prideful story, right? Or maybe one that's to protect yourself. Because maybe when you were little, you got made fun of a lot. So you had to develop a thick skin that made you kind of like against people. You were like, this is how I am. I'm going to be mean now because so many people were mean to me, so this is me. I heard a story recently. I was watching a talk, and the girl was talking about her friend, this guy in her life, and the guy was dating this girl, and the girl was straight up, she was just not a nice girl. And she said to him, when they first, even from their first date, which should have been a red flag for him, she was like, I'm a witch with a B. She's like, I'm a B, so take it or leave it. And he didn't really take it seriously then, but he kept dating her, and she was just downright mean. She was a downer. She was not cool. And all his friends were like, oh my gosh, I don't like being around her. You need to break up with her. And he was like, well, she told me from the beginning. Like, she told me that this is how she was, and like, she does have all these other good qualities. So this was a story that she created for herself, and I would say that it was a prideful story, or maybe something that she took on from something that happened to her or things that happened to her in the past. Some other ones could be, I'm too old to go back to school. I'm too old for that. My time is done. I need to just be old and do old people stuff. Or I'm too young. I'm too young to be, for me, I'm too young to be teaching this stuff. Could you imagine if I said that? I'd be hurting you. I'd be keeping this knowledge from you because I'm like, oh, I'm too young. I need to be like 50 before I teach this stuff. No, that is not a good story, obviously, for me to ever adopt. But these stories can also be about your appearance, about relationships you have, maybe about your husband or your wife. They could be about anything. So now I want to invite you to take some notes or maybe do some quick journaling and write down what kind of stories are replaying in your mind. Because when you separate the stories from the facts, that's like the first powerful step. Because now you're opening yourself up to mindset shifts, powerful mindset shifts. But how, you ask me? Of course you're asking me how. Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how when I talk to you about the Aroma Freedom Technique. But before we move forward, I really want you to take some time to write down some quick things that come up for you. What kind of stories replay in your mind? And it's okay if you can't come up with them easily, if you can't come up with anything right now. It's totally fine. We're grace voyagers. So what do? We give ourselves grace. But we're also voyagers, which means that we are willing to go back on these notes and actually face those things and think about what stories are replaying in your mind. I just wanted to add a little cheesy humor. And he says, I have a photographic memory. It takes at least an hour to develop. It's probably what's happening to you right now. Okay, so now let's dive into neuroscience again. Let's get back to it. So as you can see in the visual, you can see that right there, this red part that's showing, I don't know if I can even use my pointer, so I'm not even going to try. This red line that you can see, that's our olfactory nerve. And that nerve is accessed through our nose. And this nerve, it connects directly to the limbic system of our brain. I'll talk a little bit more about the limbic system as we go on. But this is where our primitive approach or avoidance behavior comes from, or these safe and unsafe feelings are created. So this primitive part of our brain is there to protect us. It's there to guard us and keep us from like making really stupid decisions. And essential oils, which I'll tell you more about in the self-care part of this class, those are able to calm the amygdala, which is actually accessed through the limbic system of our brain. let's talk a little bit more about our amygdala. So this graphic was just so on point because it says amygdala hijacking. So this is how our amygdala hijacking happens. First, I'm going to tell you in the technical way, and then I'll break it down in the layman's terms. So it says the stimuli goes directly to the thalamus and then goes right to the amygdala before signaling reaches the neocortex to process. So in layman's terms, this is our survival mechanism. So the survival mechanism that comes from our amygdala lets us react to things before the rational brain has time to even mull it over. So it helps us make these like quick reactions, especially as moms, right? When I became a mom, I was like, oh my gosh, becoming a mom made me like Spider-Man. Like I now have Spider-Man reflexes. Do you feel like that happened? Like your nose got stronger, like you can smell more, you can hear better. It's like all of a sudden, like all your senses were heightened, right? But here's an example of how our amygdala protects us. So let's say you touch something hot, right? When you touch something hot, what happens? You're like, ah! And you just react, like you recoil really quickly. Imagine if our amygdala wasn't there and we just thought rationally while it was happening. We're like, we're touching that hot thing. We're like, wow, this is really hot. It's like it's sizzling my skin. Ow, that really hurts. I think it's going to burn me. And then all of a sudden you're like, ow, I need to take off my hand. Not take it off, but like remove my hand, because what's happening? All of a sudden now you're burnt. You're like super, like your finger pads are gone. So our amygdala is our friend, but it can also be like our frenemy, right? It's like our friend that we love to hate, because sometimes our amygdala causes us to react in ways that we really don't want to react. Like we want to speak publicly and we want to speak in front of people. We don't want to be scared and just not do it. We want to put ourselves out there and we want to chase our dreams, but our past experiences have caused us to recoil. It causes us to be like, you know what, I'm not going to raise my hand to that. Forget it. No thanks, because it hurts to take chances. It's scary. Every time I've taken chances in the past, it just, nope. Right? Or the person who is like, all men are dogs, or they're all cheaters, is like, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to be alone for the rest of my life. That I'm better off alone. I'm not going to date anymore, because as you can see, right? So as you can see, the amygdala triggers our fight, flight, and freeze responses. This is where the survival response comes in, and smell is actually an immediate trigger. It's involved in the processing of our emotions such as fear, anger, and pleasure. Our amygdala is responsible for a lot. It's also responsible for determining what memories are stored and where the memories are stored in our brain. It is thought that the determination is based on how huge an emotional response a certain event evokes. So really traumatic event can be compartmentalized in a certain part of our brain versus a small event, and the amygdala is responsible for all that. So now what is AFT? First, I want to tell you that AFT, while it is powerful and life-changing, it is not intended to be a replacement for psychotherapy. It can be incorporated within a therapeutic concept, but it does not replace it. So AFT was developed by Dr. Benjamin Purkis, and he is an amazing genius man, and he has been a psychotherapist for over 20 years now. And he had used all these different practices in his practice, and when he developed AFT, he combined EMDR, EFT, things from NET, ART, neurofeedback, and energy psychology. So this is a combination of all of these things along with essential oils, aromatherapy, and that's how he developed AFT. So AFT has pieces of all of these practices in it. But he found once he developed it that it was more powerful than all these other ones, and now that's like all he uses with his clients, which is pretty awesome. So AFT is a new method of using essential oils combined with specific focusing exercises to identify and release the negative thoughts, feelings, and memories that block a person from realizing their dreams and intentions. So why does someone go to therapy? Because they're blocked. They're having a career problem, a relationship problem, a marital problem. They're having an emotional problem. something that's essentially keeping them from where they'd like to be. So now's when I want to talk to you about the thought, feeling, memory complex, and this is what is used in the Aroma Freedom technique. So let's use a scenario of a house burning down. Now's where I want you to look at your notes, because I have the bullets in there for you, so you can put in the negative thought, the negative feeling, the bodily sensation, and then other sensations, which I'll dive a little bit more so you know how to fill in those blanks. So let's say your house is burning down. What happens? You say, oh my gosh, I'm going to die if I stay in here. The feeling that you feel is terror. You're in absolute terror. And what happens when you're so scared? Like when you're watching a scary movie, your heart starts pounding. That's the bodily sensation. Your palms start to sweat. You start to shake. Adrenaline sets in. And then other sensations from our other senses are you feel the heat. So feeling, you hear the sounds of the fire, and you smell the smell of the smoke. So in these blanks, I want you to put in the feeling, the sound, and the smell. Those are other sensations. So our amygdala triggers us back to these stressful states. So let's say you fast forward, God forbid, but you experience this feeling. What might happen whenever you smell smoke at home? Maybe it's like a simple little thing on the stove or your toaster, but your heart probably starts to pound, or you start getting that negative thought like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Or you just start to get really stressed out. You start getting scared from like a simple piece of toast burning. Because our amygdala, when that first event happened, it created a behavior. And all of these different things start to come up. And it brings us back to that stressful state. But what was learned is that when all these four things are brought together, done through the Aroma Freedom technique process, the brain can no longer hold it together. When you bring all four things together at once, your brain can't hold it together anymore. It starts to break apart. And then once you introduce the essential oils, the feeling breaks down and a positive thought is able to come in. So some truth is able to come in. Like maybe, wow, my house burned down, but after that, I just adopted this minimalistic lifestyle and I don't have all the crap that I used to have. Or I just started to really be thankful for my life then. Because as you know, if you've heard, when people go through these big life changes, usually a certain trauma or a traumatic event occurred before these changes were made. And once essential oils are introduced, the feeling is completely dissolved. It's able to completely break it down and you feel neutral towards the situation. All of a sudden you just feel like neutral. And that's why it's called an emotional block clearing, because you're clearing this. So why is this information so important? Because the human brain thinks about 60,000 thoughts a day. So there was a study that showed that from these 60,000 thoughts a day, about 75% of them are negative. So maybe you think these things that happened in the past, there's no use revisiting them. You're like, you know what? I already went through this. I don't need to go through it again. Every time I even think about that, it makes me like just sick. Or you're like, I've already made peace with it. I don't need to revisit this again. It doesn't serve me. But that's just not true. The reason being is because you're constantly interacting with those memories and those stories or those agreements in your conscious and subconscious mind. And since we're interacting with them, these are the voices in our heads, which means we're actually not free from them. We're in a mental jail. And that shows why it's so important. And we're dealing with our roots here. These are our roots. And if we're resisting our roots or our memories, then we tend to admire them. And this could be in a negative way. We're either embodying those characteristics or we are repelling them. Or we're embodying those feelings that came as a result of those bad negative experiences. So what happens is, like, just like the quote says, what we resist persists. And it doesn't help us to be fully who we are when we are still haven't dealt with those past things healthily. So now let's dive into the first few steps of the AFT process, shall we? I'm sure you've been waiting for this. So step 1, set your intention. So what's an intention, you ask, right? First, in order to come up with an intention, I want you to name the challenge that you're going through. So when you're choosing a challenge, you want to choose one that if you were able to overcome that challenge, it would affect multiple aspects of your life. And I'll tell you why in the next slide. Because once you name the challenge, this is how you set your intention based on the change that you want to make. So we're always having to project ourselves beyond ourselves in order to overcome the current circumstance, right? But if we don't do it consciously, we have to do it consciously, because if not, we'll do it unconsciously. We'll do those negative behaviors unconsciously. It's like, when you're driving home, you do it on autopilot. You don't even have to think about it. So if we want to make changes, like if you move, you obviously have to consciously drive to the new house, because what are you going to do unconsciously? You're going to keep driving to the old spot. So if we want to eat healthier, we have to choose healthier food. So that would probably be your intention. Like, I want to eat healthier. I can never eat healthy. Well, I will eat healthy food. That is your intention. And another example of a challenge is the one that I went through was when I had this turning point in my life where I just didn't know how to move forward. So my challenge was, I don't know how to move forward. And then my intention was, I know how to move forward. Which brings us into the next part of it, is that this is how we start to reprogram our brain. Because obviously, this next part is important. So once you make your intention, you have to give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10. 0 being you have zero belief in that, and then 10 being that you're fully confident in it. So obviously, when you say that intention initially, like when I first set my intention of I know how to move forward, really, I didn't believe it. So I started at like a 2. I was like, I really don't know how to move forward. But okay, I know how to move forward. Like, I really don't know how to move forward. That was the negative thought, which I'll tell you in the next step. But first, I want to tell you about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this hierarchy of needs was developed by Abraham Maslow. So as each level of need is met, starting from the bottom, then we can begin the quest to meet the next level of need. But you have to start at the bottom. You have to start at the ugly stuff, like the layers of an onion. You got to peel off the ugly layer before you get to the fresh, nice new layers. And obviously, it's going to make you cry and it's not going to feel good sometimes. But in order to get to that next level, then obviously we have to go to the first level first. And where we are, it happens when we are pursuing our goals, it takes us up the ladder. And when we're accomplishing our goals, we can go up the ladder in this hierarchy of needs. But we can't go up the ladder without first dealing with what's beneath. So now it's the negative thought. Step 2, we identify the negative thought. And I want you to know that this is not a true AFT session. I'm just telling you what the steps of AFT are in order for you to understand it when you start to work with me on a monthly level in the collective. Okay, so identify the negative thought. So when you think about the situation, what negative thought comes to mind? So like I gave you a little example when I was like, okay, I know how to move forward. There was a little voice in my head that immediately triggered and said, I really don't know how to move forward. Or like, actually, I feel lost. So it could be something in regards to, I feel stupid, or I'm stupid, or this will never work. It could be anything, but you want to identify the first negative thought that comes to your head. So in the 1960s, Dr. Aaron Beck discovered that depressive patients have streams of negative thoughts that seem to arise spontaneously. It was just below the level of consciously. And these thoughts can be about yourself, they can be about the world, or they can be about the future. Maybe you're not smart enough, or the world sucks, you're going to fail. It could be any thought like that. Step 3, name the feeling. So as soon as this thought comes to mind, you get an immediate feeling like, oh my goodness, I feel confused, or I'm scared, or I feel stupid. Well, not stupid, that would not be a feeling. But Instead of stupid, you can say shame. That would be a feeling associated with I feel stupid, with that negative thought. But the point is to think of it in one word when you think of that situation, with one word that expresses the feeling that you have. It's probably going to be a negative feeling when you first start, and by the third round of AFT, maybe this will turn into a positive feeling. Because naming the feeling itself starts to transform the feeling, and this is a powerful process in itself. So you'll notice that the negative voice produces a feeling, which is in this part. And this is a step that's actually neglected in cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's why this was an important part to put into the AFT process. Because AFT actually dissolves these negative thoughts and it dissolves these negative feelings. So step 4, locate the feeling. So in the thought, feeling, memory complex, what did I talk about? The heart pounding, that feeling in your body that when we're feeling these thoughts or these feelings, all of a sudden there's a bodily reaction. Maybe your palms start to sweat. Maybe you can get a pain in your chest or in your heart or in your neck. Maybe you get those butterflies in your stomach. As you can see, it's been known since the beginning of time, like a term was made, butterflies in the stomach. What's that associated with? Nervousness, anxiousness. This can be any location of the body, and it could also be like the chakras. I don't know if you've heard of like the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the root chakra. It can be, you can associate it that way as well. It can be a posture like slouched shoulders or your eyes cast down, or you just want to curl up. It could be anything like that. When we feel sad, we usually feel it in our heart. You'll start to see as you go through this process that there's connections. In step 5, you locate the memory. So this is an essential step because once you find these 4 things, all of a sudden it's connected to a memory. So you drift back to an earlier time when you felt the same way, when you had that thought, feeling, or bodily sensation. So when I was going through my first round of AFT, the memory that was associated with not knowing how to move forward and feeling stuck, it was the memory of when my son was born. So when my son was born, I gave birth, and all of a sudden, like 10 nurses come in and doctors, and they just swept him away. They took him to the NICU, and they took him away from me. And that was like a trauma for me because I felt stuck. I didn't know how to move forward. I'm like, okay, isn't a mom supposed to be like nursing right now or cuddling her baby, or something's wrong here? And it created a lot of pain for me because I was there hours alone. I told my husband, go baby, go with the baby. I told him. I didn't want my son to be alone, but I was left alone. And then this created a block in my life and in my mind of not knowing how to move forward. Because before I had my son, I knew exactly what my plan was. And then after I had my son, I didn't know what to do anymore. It was like this block was created in my life from this trauma. And this has been shown, like Freud, he said, current problems are a replay of previous trauma. You can see this used in hypnosis and age regression when there's the completion of a previous experience. You can see it in EMDR when they bring up the negative image, thought, feeling, and bodily sensation, and then they hold it in consciousness and reprocess the memory. You can see it in NET, which is the neuro-emotional technique, where you find or muscle test a specific original memory that gave rise to that negative thought or feeling. So that's where this step was inspired by. Okay, but before we go into the next step, let's transition into learning about self-care now. So in this self-care section, in the second key, we're going to learn about smell and the brain, because I told you that smell is an immediate trigger to the amygdala. We're going to talk about what essential oils are. What's all this fuss about? We're going to talk about the effect of essential oils on our limbic system of our brain. And we're going to talk about the essential oils that are proven effective for AFT. And I'm going to also share the secret superpower of essential oils in AFT. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. So now let's talk about this girl. So here's where we'll find about smell in our brains. Our response to smell is powerful and it's automatic. It's always automatic. If you smell good food, what do? You go to the kitchen. You're like, you follow that smell. If you smell something bad, you're like, get away from me, right? Everyone who has a stinky husband out there who, or a son. You can see this in animals. When a rabbit smells its predator, what does it do? It immediately runs. You can see this clearly in animals. Our response to smell is automatic. And from the beginning of time, our sense of smell has been one of our primal senses. It's there to protect us. Our nervous system is also the same one that it was 1,000 years ago. It's also still very primal. And our nerve response still reacts the same way. It reacts automatically. It's not something that is delayed, it is automatic. And that's why we need something that is able to reset our minds and rewire our brain, just like AFT does. So essential oils in the olfactory system. So this is a good visual about how our olfactory system is connected to our limbic system of our brain, which I first introduced you to. So as you can see, the fragrance enters through our nasal passage, it enters our nasal cavity, and the olfactory neurons kick in, and then they go to our olfactory bulb, and then the aroma is sent directly to the center of the brain, to our limbic system, and that's where it's processed, and it releases neurochemicals that can either be relaxing, they can be stimulating, they can be sedative. It depends on the essential oil being used. Okay, let me just make sure I didn't miss something. Okay, the amygdala is right there, accessed as well. And this is where the amygdala is, and it triggers our fight, flight, or freeze survival response. As I told you a million times, smell is an immediate trigger. Essential oils are able to activate this part of our brain and activate the emotional chart memory. And the amygdala, as I told you before, is involved in processing our emotions like fear, anger, and pleasure, and it's also responsible for determining what memories are stored. But through the AFT step I'll be talking you about soon, we're able to access this part of our brain and now reprogram it using essential oils. We're able to snap it into shape in a positive way. So what are essential oils? Essential oils are the lifeblood of the plant. Aromatherapy is the use of high-quality essential oils for the purpose of altering your mood, cognitive, psychological, or physical well-being. And the oils in the plant are designed to keep it in homeostasis. They have the same effect on humans because this lifeblood, as you can mark in your notes, the lifeblood of the plant, it was there to take care of the plant, but it's been found since the beginning of time, since biblical times, that essential oils affect us the same way. They can enter into our bloodstream and within minutes have affected every single every single cell of our body. One of the oils that I talk about today is frankincense, and even in biblical times, frankincense was more valuable than gold because it was shown that frankincense is able to change the cells in our body. It's able to empower our immune system, our brain, our emotions, our spiritual connection to God. So, for the purpose of what I teach and what I cannot share anything else, I talk about Young Living essential oils. So in these essential oils we use for the Aroma Freedom technique, we use the Stress Away blend, lavender, and frankincense. Frankincense is used because it triggers the in channels of our brain and it creates a calming effect in our brain. Lavender is able to trigger our opioid receptors to calm us down as well. Because what are we doing when we're bringing up all those four things in the thought, feeling, memory complex? That stuff kind of stimulates us negatively, but when we introduce the essential oils, what does it do? It calms our brain. Vanilla oil, which is in the Stress Away blend, it has effects on dopamine and serotonin. So I use Young Living oils. Those are the only ones I recommend because I know that the company stands for purity. And purity is the most important thing that you want to focus on when you use essential oils, especially when you're inhaling them. You do not want to be using essential oils that were distilled from a plant that was sprayed with chemicals, because as I told you, essential oils are the lifeblood of the plant, and it is the concentrated form of this plant. It's basically a concentrated plant. So if you're using essential oils that were distilled from a plant that had chemicals on it, those chemicals are now at a concentrated level being applied to your body and entering our brain. So I know that Young Living, they operate from the seed to seal standard, which means that from the seed has to be the best seed, the cleanest seed. The land that it is planted on has to be virgin land. It is tested for chemicals and makes sure that there's no chemicals in that land. The plants are only treated with essential oils. They're not treated with chemicals. They're hand weeded. And then they are distilled when it is at its maximum potential. So some oils are taken out of the sap of the tree. Some oils are distilled when it reaches a certain age. Jasmine, I believe, is distilled when the plant had just bloomed. Like the day it is bloomed, they go and they gather it up and then they distill it. So there have been various studies by the scientist, by the original founder of Young Living, that he made sure that each plant that he distilled, he studied it copiously. He had scientists study it to know when those plants were at their maximum yield and their highest potential in order to be distilled. Because essential oils carry a frequency, and this frequency is carried through our body, and it's very intelligent, and it goes into our body through smell, through touch, application, or through ingestion, and then they go into our body and they know exactly what our body needs. So Young Living has their own farms. They only work with partner farms that follow the seed to seal standard. Essential oils are safe. They're not chemicals. They're not these things that were put together by a pharmaceutical company that just made it in order to make money off of this new issue that was probably made up. And Young Living does this with all of their products. They have the largest variety of single oils and blends, which I like to call synergistic blends, because when you talk about something that is synergistic, it means that separately it works a certain way. But when it comes together, it works better in order to create the effect that you want it to have. So like this blend that's called Stress Away, they named it Stress Away for a reason, and they put specific essential oils in that blend in order to combat stress. Now, don't you wish that there was a reset button? Don't you wish that in your brain you can just hit reset for certain things? You could just start over, let's say in job interviews, let's say when you feel nervous or when you feel angry or your husband says something to you that you're like, oh, every time he says that, it makes me so mad. Don't you wish there was a reset, a way that you could just reprogram your brain? Maybe when you feel overwhelmed all the time, to deal with that overwhelm. When it's like everything feels important but you can't get it done. Don't you wish you could just be that person who's like, you know what, I have all this stuff going on, but this is what's important, and I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to keep my eyes on the prize. Maybe you make a brain dump, right? You create a list, a master list of everything that you have to do, and it makes you feel good for a minute. I mean, I do brain dumps, but it's only temporary. It doesn't really fix the issue that you're dealing with at hand. Don't you wish you just had a little bit of relief? And that's where the next step of AFT comes in. But can you relate? First, can you relate to those feelings? You're like, man, I just really wish that I could reset this behavior, or I could just like reset the way that I think about this. Imagine all the things that you can do. Imagine just a couple of things that you could do if you could just reset your brain, reprogram it, rewire it. For example, with public speaking, I talked about that example of the little girl who was in 4th grade and she spoke in public, and then from then on she was like, forget it. This doesn't work for me. I'm just not a good speaker. I don't like that. It just makes me nervous. We want to be able to hit that reset button when we're preparing for the speech that we want to give, or to actually take the chance to make that speech. Well, now I'm going to show you the most important step in the Aroma Freedom technique, because with this technique, you can choose one thing a week and work to reprogram your behavior around that thing. And sometimes and some clearings, some emotional block clearings, you can actually clear that immediately. So now the next step is focusing on the memory. So in the first 5 steps, we brought up the intention, right? So we brought up the negative thought, the feeling, the bodily sensation, and the memory, right? We brought those 4 things up. And now we're going to focus on the memory while we smell the essential oils. So as you take the essential oils, you're going to put 1 drop in your hand. You're going to rub your hands together, and then you inhale while playing the memory through your mind like a movie. Right? So now, once you have your premium starter kit, you will have these 3 oils. And what you could do is you'll get these little bottles, you put a few drops of each of these oils, and then you have your blend for this step of the Aroma Freedom technique. So now once the oils are introduced, remember I talked about the amygdala, when those 4 things are brought up, all of a sudden your brain can't hold that together anymore? Well, then once the essential oils are brought in, all of a sudden you're smelling something good, calming, and the positive thought is able to come in, because what happens, the feelings start to break apart. Your brain can't hold on to them anymore. And a positive thought now comes in. Maybe resolve. Maybe a shift in that bodily sensation. Maybe an aha moment. Maybe a strategy. And then while looking at that inner imagery, it triggers a brain response that's similar to when the original event was occurring. So now you're revisiting that original event and you're like, I'm done with you. You're like, I am going to bring healing to this memory, because the conscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. And a perfect example is when you're watching a scary movie. Your brain doesn't know that you're not there. Your conscious mind knows, like, okay, it's a movie, but your subconscious mind, your conscious mind still doesn't even know that you're not there. So your palms start to sweat, your heart starts pounding, right? Because it's triggering a brain response. And while you're bringing these things up, your amygdala is also getting activated. And while you're smelling the oil at that moment, it calms your amygdala, and it doesn't allow the memory complex to hold together anymore. The oils have an immediate effect. Remember I said that this transformed my life immediately? It happens immediately. And in this technique, sometimes we have to go, there's some trauma that we have to go over and over. Maybe there's multiple negative thoughts that are associated, or multiple negative memories, maybe a recurring trauma, like recurring bad boyfriends, that needs to be dealt with layer by layer, as I said before, but some, it's just immediate. And I also wanted to tell you about some research in lavender alone. So, well, first there was a research that was found on the effect of rose essential oil, and how it calmed mice down. Then there's studies on lavender, which is one of the oils used in the technique. In 2010, researchers in Germany studied the effectiveness of lavender oil in capsules, and they found it to be as effective as Valium for the treatment of generalized anxiety disorder. This was also found in another study in 2010, in a double-blind study where they randomized the study of lavender oil. And they made it, they prepared it as Selexan, which is another medicine for generalized anxiety disorder. And they compared it to lavender. They randomized it and they gave it to the participants. And they saw that lavender oil was effective for generalized anxiety disorder. Now, step 7, now is when the magic happens. So now is when you want to notice the changes. And this is the part that you want to be open. You don't want to be judgmental towards it, because we always default to wanting to be judgmental. But this is where the image spontaneously shifts or fades. This is where the feeling in your body can soften or it can go away altogether, and the emotional charge goes away. So you ask yourself, what happened to the image? What happened in your body? Do you get clear guidance on what you're supposed to do next? Do you become aware of the real issue or a deeper concern that you need to work on? And Carl Jung talks about the active imagination and remembering something and how you can modify it so that it changes your emotions. And this is what's happening. So now before we dive into the final step, I want to thank you for bearing with me and being with me on this journey. And during this class, this powerful class, I want to dive into the final step now of AFT so we can talk about self-mastery. So self-mastery in this part, I'm going to talk about the final steps of the Aroma Freedom Technique, and I'm also going to talk about how you can make this process work in your life. So now step 8, notice new beliefs. So once the feelings start to fade, a positive and encouraging mindset suddenly appears. I would say that step 7 and 8 they go hand in hand, because now you can be encouraged, or you can have creative ideas. They can appear spontaneously, like solutions to the original problem. One time I worked with one of my clients, and she was dealing with something that happened to her as a child where she didn't speak up. And then it created this pattern in her life of she never spoke up to herself. So this is when we went back and we dealt with that original time, and she spoke to her inner child, and she behaved differently. So her inner child in her mind right there was able to speak up. And I asked her, what would you have said in that situation now? And that was such a powerful experience for her, because she finally had resolve. She was able to speak up for herself and behave differently. Even though it was in the past, this was something that was life-changing for her. So now the final steps, the ones that create transformation. So step 9 is you state your original intention out loud and you give it a new rating from 0 to 10. And now if your rating is less than an 8, we are going to return to step 2. And that is when we are going to state our original intention and see what negative thought comes up again. And once the shift occurs, we come back to the present and assess the progress again. There's no need to stay and linger or talk more about the old memory. But if it's less than an 8, it usually means that there's another negative memory associated, or a negative memory complex associated, that is blocking the intention. So we go back to the beginning and we find the next layer. And this is found in solution-focused therapy, when we rate our progress and we keep moving forward. So then after that, once we reach a step 8, we create an affirmation that expresses our new positive belief. This is called affirmative self-talk, because it has been linked to better outcomes with psychological as well as wellness indicators. And the affirmation can be the same as the original intention. That's what I usually end up doing. Or the affirmation can be set as an expression, or it can be an expression of something that came up in step 7 and 8. Maybe a message that you received while smelling the oil. Maybe you heard, finally, you were able to hear your inner guide or your inner knowing or the Holy Spirit that told you something that was a truth. And maybe this can become your affirmation. So then step 11 is you say the affirmation, and then you smell an uplifting oil. So for this, I would recommend peppermint oil, which comes in your kit. And you stand in a power pose, saying your affirmation for 2 minutes, 2 times a day. So in the morning when you wake up, you say your affirmation for 2 minutes, you set a timer, and then at night before you go to bed. And we say our affirmation with conviction. And in our Embody Peace Core training, I talk about power posing and what these power poses are, because studies have shown that power posing for 2 minutes has been shown to improve confidence, it raises testosterone, and it lowers cortisol levels. And when we smell things, we can associate them with emotional states. So that's why we introduce smell, because when there's a negative state, because once we introduce a positive smell, all of a sudden your brain doesn't even know what it's thinking. So imagine when you do it with an affirmation. It's like, yes, you're like telling your brain, this is a good thing. This is what I want you to learn. Once you bring that good, strong smell or that positive smell, you're telling your brain, yes, this is something to keep replaying in my mind. And smelling an essential oil while saying the affirmation helps to link the odor to the positive feeling. This is called odor conditioning. So a reference to this is olfaction, emotion, and associative learning, the effects on motivated behavior, which was a study in 2004. And the reference to the power posing study is from Amy Cuddy in The Benefit of Power Posing. I don't know if you've seen her TED Talk. So you keep your affirmation and daily progress, and once an intention has been reached or the focus needs to shift, you create a new intention using AFT. And if necessary, you go through the AFT process again and again and again for all the new things that you want to take on in your life. And then step 12 is you make a plan and you take action daily. Because clearing away blocks is important, obviously, but if you don't take action, then what's the use? Nothing will happen. You still must climb the mountain before you, but now the climb is quicker and it's easier once these blocks are gone. So now what challenge would you like to use this technique on? I bet you can think of a million, well, not a million, that's exaggerating, but I'm sure that you can think of tons of challenges that you would love to create new intentions on. So would you agree? Would you agree? Tell me if you would agree that being able to use this technique would help you build influence and achieve inner peace in the long run? Right? Yes. Here's some more proof. And there's a case study done on almost 2,000 participants, and this was their original rating from step 1, asking how possible does this feel? And then after a couple of rounds of AFT, this is where they ended up. After a couple of rounds, look, they're at an 8, 9, 10. So now tell me, why did you show up to this training? Why did you even show up? Well, I introduced you to the 3 keys to inner peace because obviously you want to achieve inner peace in your life. Everybody is on a quest to inner peace. I taught you how you can use the aroma freedom technique to turn your past struggles into strengths. I taught you how to uncover the messes of your past and find hidden messages and lessons behind them. I taught you how to make peace with those negative voices in your head and reprogram your mind for greatness. And I taught you how aromatherapy fits into all of this and how it's a key role in helping you reprogram your brain. And now you've learned how your brain is completely reprogrammable, and it's actually the vehicle behind the successes and failures of your life. But knowing that you can reprogram it, obviously you're going to reprogram it for success. So let's recap it. So now write this in your notes. Self-discovery is the best road to freedom, right? Aromatherapy is a versatile tool to rewire your brain. You can use this for self-image, negative self-talk. You can use it for physical issues, emotional, relationship issues. It's so versatile. And you learned how the aroma freedom technique is a powerful tool for reprogramming your brain and accomplishing your goals, therefore increasing your joy and satisfaction in your life. So you're asking me now, okay, how do I make this all work quickly? I want to work with you. How do I do this? Well, you've got 2 options. You've got the easy way or the hard way, right? There's 2 options right here. The easy way is you're like, all right, I can do this alone. You taught me the steps. I'm going to go look to the store and get some essential oils, and I'm just going to say some affirmations, right? No. You can try to figure it out, but it's not going to be that easy without doing this core work that I'm going to teach you in the core training of the collective. Because you can do it the easy way. And the easy way is you just get your starter kit and you join the Embody Peace Collective. That's going to be the easy way because I'm going to hold your hand through this process, creating lasting change and finding inner peace in your life. I'll tell you more now. Because hands down, the biggest game changer to the most profound transformation is the ability to achieve inner peace through self-discovery and harnessing the power of aromatherapy. You can see it in the studies, you can see it in the facts, you can see it in this whole class that I've just spent time with you on. And that's exactly what you're going to learn in the Embody Peace Collective. Now let me tell you a little bit more about the Embody Peace Collective. The Embody Peace Collective is a powerful membership where we'll come together as a collective in order to gain the language and strategy to eliminate the dysfunctional patterns that have been holding you back spiritually, emotionally, physically, professionally, and personally. And in this collective, you will be a grace voyager. Remember I talked to you about grace voyagers in the beginning? You're going to be a grace voyager releasing the dysfunctional patterns that have been holding you back for way too long. And I say no more to that. Are you excited for this? Because I am. I am so excited for this. I've poured my whole heart into this. Gaining access to this collective membership will also give you the Embody Peace core training that I've developed, in which we'll dive deeply together into how to apply the 3 keys into your life. One key, one step at a time. This core training is going to take you on an imaginative journey. I wanted to make it fun and immersive and something that you look forward to learning, that you look forward to logging on to. So it's going to take you onto an imaginative journey where you're part of your own story as a grace voyager, where you get shipwrecked on an island, a magical island called Peace Island. And while you're on this island, you're going to find clues throughout your journey that will lead you through the process, very gently, of creating your life map, where you can uncover your destructive patterns and you can create these defined intentions that create lasting change in your life. This journey will ultimately take you through the process of embodying peace, making this newfound peace a part of you. Isn't this awesome? Okay, so let's talk about what you're going to get. So how would you change? First, how would you change if you could get clarity and understanding on what your truth is, and then boldly stand in it without fear of judgment? What if you could understand the pain to purpose connection, how your past hurts connect with your specific strengths? If you could learn how to set goals and intentions with ease and grace and then accomplish them. If you could create simple sentences, phrases, and strategies built with non-intimidating language in order to propel achievements in your life. Or if you could learn how to manage negative self-talk and effectively quiet the voices that once crippled you with fear. And you can learn why you have judgment struggles and how to overcome them. Or you could learn how to calmly compose yourself in difficult, emotionally charged interactions and situations. Remember we talked about influence? And you can learn how to stop abandoning yourself for the sake of others. No more people pleasing. No more keeping your mouth shut for the simple sake of just not ruffling any feathers. But you can learn how to share your true, authentic self. Because how can anyone authentically love you if you never let them authentically know you? If you don't even know yourself? Well, you can identify the beliefs and promises that are no longer serving you, those old stories, and gracefully let them go. So here's what you're going to get with your membership to the collective. You're going to get access to the Embody Peace Core Training Program, and the complete Core Training Program modules, they're going to be delivered weekly starting October 15th. So at the time of this recording, this is when they will be live. There you can discover where your personal blocks originated and gain the language and strategy to eliminate the dysfunctional patterns that have been holding you back spiritually, emotionally, physically, professionally, and personally. You're also going to receive a monthly video masterclass in addition to this, in your private membership area, and you're going to experience the wisdom from me and from guest experts. It's going to be interchangeable. Every month will be different, and we're all going to be covering topics that will support and enrich and enhance this new freedom lifestyle. In your monthly video and your core training lessons, those are going to come with integration exercises. They're going to be reflective and insightful questions that help you to uncover life-changing insight and apply this new knowledge that I'm giving you to your personal life, and you can produce week-to-week transformation. And these integration exercises, they're designed to shine a light on those historical and current struggles so that along with a deeper understanding of yourself, you will also benefit from the collective group support. But I'm not going to leave you hanging on AFT. You're wondering, okay, well, where does the Aroma Freedom Technique fall into this? This is the core stuff you need to do first, because a lot of us, we don't know ourselves. We don't even know what we're blocked on. We don't even know where our blocks are, right? We don't even know what we want to move forward on. And that's why this core training is so powerful. But then you're going to get a monthly group session where I'm going to have a monthly live stream with you answering your burning questions and participate in an emotional group emotional block clearing. And just because it's a group clearing doesn't mean that I'm not going to be there to hold your hand and respond to your comments and your questions and where you're feeling held back. I'm going to be there with you live. You can get your questions answered on the trainings, and you can experience your transformation there. You can bring your questions, you can grab a hot cup of coffee or tea, whatever you drink. I drink coffee and tea. And you can join me live each month from the comfort of your bed, your couch, wherever you want to join me from for this group session. So you can get started right now by joining the collective. And the collective, you're going to get a flexible $37 a month option, or you can get 2 months free by paying for the whole year. You get 2 months free. So for $370, you get access to the membership for a whole year, but you don't have to pay for 2 months of it. Or if you want to do the month to month, it's still a flexible $37 a month. That's like less than a night out to dinner. Well, at least family of 4, it's like a minimum of $50. So you have 2 options there that can help you join right now. I wanted to make this accessible to everyone at all levels of income. This is important for me, and I know that this is important for you so that you can achieve your next level of life. So if you're wondering about where to get your essential oils, I already told you, the Young Living Premium Starter Kit is the absolute fastest way to gain big results in the Aroma Freedom Technique. So here's what you're going to get with your Premium Starter Kit. You're going to get 11 bottles of Young Living's most popular and versatile essential oils. You're going to get the diffuser of your choice, though I'm going to tell you the Desert Mist diffuser, the one that you see right there for $160, that is the diffuser that I use. I would show it to you right now, but I don't want to knock it down. It's my favorite. You also get the Aroma Glide roller fitment, which you can turn any of those bottles of essential oils into a roller bottle and apply it and carry it with you in your purse. And as you notice, you get stress away there, you get frankincense there, and you also get lavender there. And you also get peppermint, which are all the necessary oils for the Aroma Freedom Technique sessions. And in your core training, I'm going to actually have a guided AFT session for you there, so that if you ever want to do AFT sessions by yourself, I will be there to guide you. And you'll have your oils. Also, you're going to get 10 essential oil sample packets. So if you want to give them out to your friends, if you're like, wow, this is awesome, I really want to start a business because I have a Young Living business. And when you're purchasing these, you're getting them from me. And if you decide, hey, I really believe in this too, I want to start a business, you want to start sharing them, then you can do that. You're also going to get a Thieves sample pack. So Thieves is the cleaner that Young Living makes, and it is a powerful cleaner, and it's a concentrated cleaner. So in this package, you can make 3 big bottles of cleaner. So you just put a third of the package, put water in it, and you have a whole spray bottle of cleaner. And you also get a major bonus with this. You get 24% off of all of the products. Remember I told you that they have the biggest range of single oils, blends, other wellness products. You get 24% off for life with this wholesale membership. And you also get multiple opportunities to get free product. But there's more. So this package, this set, It's a $360 value because all of the oils, you're basically getting them at half off with this starter kit. So not only do you get your wholesale membership, you're going to get a consultation with me one-on-one where I'm going to consult you on essential oils and what your health goals are. You're also going to get access to other online courses that I've created in order to harness your power of essential oils and bring aromatherapy to life in your life and support you on this journey. And I also wrote a book called Hundreds of Uses for Essential Oils, which you will also get for free so you can know exactly how you can use those oils, the ones in your kit, hundreds of ways. But there's more. When you purchase your starter kit from me before October 5th, I'm going to give you $50 back. That's the commission I get from your starter kit. I'm going to give it back to you. So all you have to do is get your kit and say, hey, Viana, I got my kit. I want my 50 bucks. Can you tell me with love though? But I'm going to send it back to you. I'm going to give it right back to you. That is how much I believe in this collective and how much I believe in your success and your freedom. That's how much that I don't care about my commission. I'm going to give it back to you. So go to the embodypeacecollective.com right now and you will see when you scroll down the link to getting your kit. embodypeacecollective.com. So links to remember, write that down, Embody Peace Collective. And that is the link to join the collective right now. Write that down, take a screenshot. So what happens next? So first you're going to get your starter kit. And if you're already a member of Young Living or you're like, you know what, I don't want to use those, that's fine. This is just all I advocate for. And obviously, this is how I take care of my family. So I have a Young Living business. I started a business. This is what I use with my clients. And I would love for you to purchase from me because with that, I'm going to give you my knowledge and my personal support. That gives you more access to me. When you have a question about essential oils or what to do in a certain situation, I am here for you. And step 2, join the collective at embodypeacecollective.com. And then contact me for your 50 bucks. I'm going to give them right back to you. So I also have another bonus. So everyone who purchases immediately, I'm going to give you a group session where we're going to come up with together your first intention. So we're going to unpack what you're going through. We're going to unpack what you are experiencing right now and these negative things that you're experiencing, these blocks. We're going to come up with what's the first thing in this hierarchy of needs that you want to work on and that you should work on that would propel you exponentially in your life. So for joining right now, getting your starter kit and joining the collective, you will have access to this fast action bonus. And I just want to thank you for joining me in this class and completing it. And I want you to go to the Embody Peace Collective right now and join this amazing movement so that you can propel lasting change in your life and you can break the chains for your family and the generations to come. I want to thank you. Thank you for joining me here. Thank you for being with me and sticking with me through the class. Now go to embodypeacecollective.com and join the collective. Bye.